Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. It's going to be a fantastic show this week with 3 brand new reviews, 2 of which are a couple of the most anticipated films of the summer. This week on the show, Ethan Hunt is back for his biggest mission yet in one of the most anticipated action movies of the summer, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. A group of friends that are separated by 40 years apart and painful memories, only to be reunited by fate in the dramatic comedy, The Miracle Club. And finally, one of the pinkest movies that you will ever see and one of the biggest box office surprises of this summer is the new live-action Barbie. Now, before we just jump right into reviews, this, of course, as always, will be a spoiler-free review of all films. But if you are looking for a more in-depth look, just this week I appeared on the Talking Smack podcast, where I joined the amazing Alex, where we both doll up and put on our brightest pink shirts and discuss a more in-depth review of the Barbie movie. The Talking Smack Barbie episode was a ton of fun, and make sure to check that episode out. The link to the Talking Smack Barbie episode will be in the description of this episode. Now, I also have a very special announcement that next week you do not want to miss this show. We have a very special episode where I will be giving an early review of Gran Turismo, and I will also be welcoming back the amazing Alex from the Talking Smack podcast, where we both will be giving our review of Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. That show will release at 12:01 a.m. Wednesday morning. We have a couple of big movies to cover this week. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Come on, Barbie, let's go party.
Out of the windows to watch a roar and a burst of flame.
The Movie Wire podcast.
You meet people like me.
The Wire. And here we go.
Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. And the 7th entry is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Our lives are the sum of our choices. And we cannot escape the past. Ethan, this mission of yours is gonna cost you dearly.
The world is changing. Truth is vanishing. War is coming.
It's been a long time, friend. You've no idea the power I represent. It knows your story and how it ends.
Listen to me. The world's coming after you.
His fate is written. Shall we write yours too?
If anything happens to them, there's no place that I won't go to kill you. That is written.
Ethan, what's your objective? What's your ultimate objective?
Your life will always matter more to me than my own.
none of our lives can matter more than this mission.
I don't accept that.
Now, I have a soft spot for the Mission Impossible films, and that isn't because I enjoyed all of them, because I didn't, but rather because I remember when the first Mission Impossible came out, it was 1996. I was in 8th grade, and by accident, I was sitting at a table at lunch with a group of friends that just so happened to be next to a more popular group than my group. And also in that group next to me was an extremely pretty girl that was way out of my league. And the group next to me I overheard was discussing the new Mission Impossible movie. And in a normal situation of not having the confidence to just invite myself into a conversation, they were speaking my language. Movies. This is where I intervened and just asked a simple question if they saw Tom Cruise's 2 previous movies, Interview with the Vampire or The Firm. And with no surprise, they responded with they didn't see either. But as the bell rang to end lunch, I grabbed my backpack, and right when I was about to walk into the hall, the girl that was way out of my league said they were going to sneak out of school to go see Mission Impossible if I wanted to come. Now, this decision should have been a harder, more thought-out answer given that I've never done anything like sneaking out of school before, but we had 2 things going against my morals, and that was a beautiful girl asking me to do something that I loved. Movies. These 2 forces combined took me a quarter of a second to answer, which I answered absolutely. Now, did the risk at the end of the day be worth the reward? Absolutely not. Another guy in the group got the girl and I got in trouble. But reflecting, it was exhilarating because everything leading up to going to the movie, planning out my move to sit next to this girl, everything was exciting. But once walking into the theater to pick our seats, I got pushed to the end of the group and I got to sit on the opposite end of where this girl was sitting. And another guy got to sit next to the girl. So my overdramatic young mind gave up. But then the lights go down and the Mission Impossible theme music comes on, and I was put into another world. It made me forget the reason I was there in the first place. Now, even though my mission failed landing the girl, Mission Impossible I do have to thank for not having me learn my lesson of sneaking out to catch a movie, which I never did skip school again for a movie, but I did find that when everybody was asleep, to kind of sneak out and catch a late night movie, in which I got lucky and never got caught from that. So Mission Impossible, to an extent, gave me some courage, yet a slide of morals to sneak out and see movies that I potentially would have never possibly seen. So in that respect, I guess holistically, it was a mission accomplished, at least in terms of encouraging me to view more movies. Now, action movies in the 90s were handled a little bit different than we see now. From 1995's GoldenEye to Mission Impossible, we had this secret agent vibe going on. And what I respect about this era in action movies is that it was just starting to really discover CGI and the different ways to execute an idea in a movie. This is both a curse and a benefit in film. To me, it's more of a curse in storytelling. It's become a crutch when it comes to current films. But don't get me wrong, we have some films that have great utilization of CGI, and others that have a 50-page script and really rely on CGI-heavy fillers to entertain. The 1996 Mission Impossible is the most rewatchable film of the franchise. The problem I have with the Mission Impossible films after the first 3 is that we have all the movies start to become forgettable and just really starts to blend together. At the time of viewing, they are extremely successful at being a good popcorn flick at the movies. But after we walk out, they can be extremely forgettable when it comes to its story elements. And with every new movie that comes out, it almost requires the viewer to do a rewatch to actually gain story value from it. And then you have the other type of audience that just goes for the mere action or the viewing experience. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is no different. While it does have a more intriguing threat, it follows the same formula as its previous films. And that is to entertain in the moment. And again, will require a revisit when part 2 comes out for those that want to appreciate the full experience of the story. But what really holds this movie together, along with its previous couple of films, is the supporting cast of characters that are a pivotal definition of supporting cast to keep the movie interesting and really keep this movie afloat. Now, when it comes to Tom Cruise, as I see him in his recent movies, he keeps to his Tom Cruise acting style that seems to be the same performance lately. There is no uniqueness to his performance to really separate his last few movies apart. Even Even though movies like Top Gun Maverick were good movies, his performance is starting to flow like the Mission Impossible films. His performance just kind of blends in. The uniqueness of what the supporting cast brings to the table is what truly separates this film. Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames return as Benji and Luther, who do a fantastic job here to really sharpen that emotional element and heighten the emotional stakes to really support Cruise's bland, uninteresting character that seems to de-evolve emotionally as the movies go on and as Cruise gets older. Now, the film was written by Band of Brothers writer Eric Jenderson and Christopher McQuarrie, who seem to be Cruise's go-to writer since he is responsible for writing 8 out of the 11 of Tom Cruise feature-length films, with the other films being The Usual Suspects, The Way of the Gun, and The Tourist. Now, whereas the writing can be completely fine here, it does seem to come across with a complicated idea with too simplistic dialogue to not really match the conflict at hand. Some of the dialogue can come across as brief and almost like a burst of words to give the impression of a fast-paced action movie, but the movie demands longer explanation from the dialogue. Now, this of course matches the pure intent of being true to what it wants to be, an in-the-moment entertaining spy thrill ride. And Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning does accomplish this, and again becomes exactly what it seeks out to do. But where the writers are smart is the fact that it treats its supporting cast as the actual real stars of the movie, that balances out the Cruise character, and adds the emotional attachment and likability factor from Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, who are the most memorable parts of the movie, and at times I wanted more screen time with them. We also have 2 added characters that are 2 mystery characters that are a complete mystery on their moral intent on what side of the story they will land when we come to part 2. And that's Agent Briggs and Degas, played by Shea Wingham and Greg Tarzan Davis, who are in a chase to track Ethan Hunt down, and these characters are faced with multiple moral questions and have some great scenes through dialogue to ensure the viewer and audience pay close attention to what these 2 are going to do next. The entire supporting cast, again, fantastic here. It's my favorite part of the movie, and the writers ensure that when they are on screen, they make an impact, and that they matter to build the suspense around Cruise. Now, where Dead Reckoning became a distraction to me was an inconsistency to the technical aspects, such as the utilization of up-close shots when there is dialogue. It's overly simplistic to show a sense of danger or suspense. And though it does give a focus of importance to the dialogue, it is so overly used it becomes a complete distraction, and noticeable how many up-close shots this movie has. Now, the premise of Dead Reckoning is that our main IMF agent, Ethan Hunt, and his team are on a race to hunt down 2 separated pieces of a key that will unlock the ultimate AI power. And I have to mention this on a side note because it drove me nuts in the movie, is the actual look and design of the key. The technical consistency is not there. It became a distraction to me, where at times the key looks metallic and other times it looks like it came out of a kid's Happy Meal. There is a lot of lack of attention to detail and technical aspects that just doesn't sit well with me in this movie. And in this kind of movie, I normally wouldn't pay too much attention to the little details as long as the movie is executing its intent of being exactly what it wanted to be. But it just became overly done with its flaws between the close-up shots of the cast and the close-up shots of the inconsistent key. It took away focus of the intended action for me. Now, the buzz going into this movie was this huge Tom Cruise stunt that he did himself, and I have to say, even here, the technical aspects were very underwhelming. I do give Tom Cruise credit for the bravery he had by doing his own stunts, but for me, it didn't translate as impressive on screen. Now, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning goes for close to 3 hours. Did it feel like a 3-hour movie? The answer is no. The pacing was spot on, as a Mission Impossible movie should be based on its predecessors, but did it need to be as long as it was? The answer is no. There wasn't a lot here when it comes to substance and dialogue, but the action does keep our attention. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 does exactly what you would expect from a Mission Impossible movie. Entertain in the moment while you're there, but it will soonly be forgotten as months go on. But those going to this movie are going for a very specific reason, to see action, and a lot of action, and to be entertained. Is it self-aware of what it's trying to do? The answer is yes. Those knowing what you're getting into, you will definitely get your money's worth of the biggest Mission Impossible movie yet. It also has enough nods to its previous films to keep hardcore fans happy. So for what it is, does it check all the boxes of being a big summer blockbuster that will entertain? I would say this was a mission accomplished. I'm giving Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 3 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews on previous episodes for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now. Now available, be part of her world in the Disney live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, which was a poor, unfortunate soul, receiving only 2 stars. Discover the hero just beneath the surface in Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, which was a much better under-the-sea ride than The Little Mermaid, receiving 3 stars. 4 Friends, 1 Trip, No Luck in the very naughty comedy Joyride, which was a hilarious ride, receiving 3 stars. Worlds Collide in the new addition to the DC Universe in The Flash, which was a fun, fast ride, receiving 3 stars. And finally, that didn't take long in theaters is The Blackening, which received 2.5 stars. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe, and don't forget to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Letterboxd at MovieWire Show. Now, those of you that have listened before, you have heard on my show here in the Seattle area, we just had open enrollment in our Snohomish Film Festival, and I have had a ton of fun helping judge all the submissions, but sadly submission is now officially closed. I just want to say thank you to all of you that submitted. There has been a ton of talent submit their projects, and I have to say what an insane amount of talent we have had this year submit their films. Now, even though submission is now officially closed, still visit the Snohomish Film Festival page at www.filmfreeway.com/Snohomish Film Festival. There you will find more information on the festival and to buy tickets for September 9th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Don't wait to the last minute. I will see you there. And lastly, it has been a busy week for me here over at the Movie Wire. Not only have we had a lot of anticipated movies hit theaters, but I also made an appearance on the amazing Talking Smack podcast. But I also did make an appearance this week on the show that gives me a break from movie talk. It forces me to crack open a beer at noon to have some fun discussing yet another fun and interesting topic. And that's the Casting Views podcast with host Dan. It was yet another fantastic time at the Casting Views where we discuss unique musical acts. This is a Casting Views Movie Wire crossover you do not want to miss. The link to that episode will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from Dan over at Casting Views now.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.
In 1967, there's just one dream for the women of Ballagher, Ireland, to taste freedom, to win a pilgrimage to the sacred French town of Lourdes, in the new movie starring Laura Linney, Kathy Bates, Angus O'Casey, and Maggie Smith in The Miracle Club.
Ladies, what's the name?
The Miracles.
First prize, 2 tickets to Lourdes. Best of luck.
He's so fine. Wish he were mine.
What do you want to be going to Lourdes for anyway?
I always wanted to go there.
If you go out that door, don't bleeding bother coming back.
Miracles happen there.
He could speak.
How are you, Chrissy?
My mother is dead. I'm in a place I swore I would never come back to. Hi. I wouldn't have recognized you.
40 years would do that to you.
I'd say, yeah, mixed.
Yes, but it's great to have her back.
Marvellous. Bloody marvellous.
Congratulations. You're coming to Lourdes.
Who's going to have to do the cooking and the cleaning? Not me, I can tell you, that's your job.
What'll I do on me own?
I'll be back before you know it. You will. Holy Mary, Mother of God.
Welcome to Lourdes.
Here's I am sharing with you. Is there only one bed?
Your ma wouldn't have fussed.
I am not my mother.
Ain't that the truth?
We're ready.
I'm not.
Why did you leave?
Leave? I was banished, Eileen.
I loved you, and you left.
I'm glad you came home. Can you ever forgive me?
don't come to Lourdes for a miracle, Eileen. You come for the strength to go on when there is no miracle.
You're still alive.
Oh, just about.
And there's always hope.
Peace. That's what I hope for.
I think I had me a miracle.
What?
I actually missed you.
The Miracle Club was directed by Thaddeus O'Sullivan, who is a very safe director, alongside writers Joshua D. Maurer, Timothy Prager, and Jimmy Smallhorn, in which all of these three writers is either their first film or they've just done a handful of TV shows that again are very new writers to full-length features. And with that said, they use a very safe writing style to allow our powerhouse of a cast carry the movie with their performances. With the safe writers and the safe director comes this very safe but innocent story of family and friends who all come together to tell the story of loss, heartbreak, pain, aging, sickness, and death. When looking at the scope of these topics and emotions, this movie wants an audience to feel the emotion, and having a safe script and a safe director isn't the strategy I would have gone with. The movie completely banks on the natural, outstanding performances from Lenny, Bates, and Smith. And boy, does this talented cast try their best with a script that really tends to go nowhere emotionally when it comes to the dialogue. It's like all three writers knew of the powerhouse of a cast prior to writing the script, and then they thought to themselves, hey, let's just play a game of screenwriting Mad Libs and let the cast fill in the blanks. The story of the Miracle Club follows friends Eileen, Lily, and Dolly, again played by Bates, Smith, and O'Casey, who live in Ballagher, Ireland, who are caught by an unpleasant surprise when after 40 years an old friend returns from the US to attend her mother's funeral. Aileen and Lily have a disgust for Chrissy with her return, but all embark on a journey to Lourdes, France, each with a goal in mind to be cured by a miracle in one way or another on religious grounds. On the journey, our four women are forced to sort out the hate they have for Chrissy, as well as seek out a miracle to cure and solve each one of their ailments. Now, those of you that listen or know me know I'm a sucker for a simplistic story with complicated characters and complicated dialogue. This formula matches the human element of expression to communicate on screen. It also gives us a deeper look into the writer's psyche of expression, as well as having the cast give their interpretation of how they would deal with these emotions. By keeping a simplistic story, it creates almost a blank canvas for our creators to really shine. But here, the creators made me feel like I was watching the same episode of Bob Ross, painting the same damn tree for over a week. With every time the characters talk or conversate, there is nothing new to gain from the character progression. It just seems to go in the same formula of dialogue that the writers refuse to evolve. This movie's formula is as follows. Laura Linney delivers a sentence of dialogue, Kathy Bates gives her a stare of death, and Maggie Smith plays neutral in her looks as not to get involved. Then wait 10-15 minutes, then repeat. As our ladies board a bus bound for Lourdes, France, I found my mind start to wander and found the setting of the inside of the bus to be more entertaining than what's going on. I started asking myself questions. How long does it take to get to Lourdes, France from Ballagher, Ireland? Which is about 21 hours, just so you know. Or when are they going to actually stop this bus to let these ladies use the restroom? There was nothing of substance to really engage me into this story, with the exception of our talented cast. They are not given enough substance to really shine on screen. Now, by the time we get to the climax, we have no emotional attachment to the characters, the settings are bleak, and the camera shots are too safe and utilize up-close shots to whoever is speaking, without inviting the audience to observe a full group conversation. Now, the intent of this movie is admirable. The messaging summed up at the end is simplified and satisfying. I liked where the movie ended, but the journey is where it seemed to give me jet lag. What the Miracle Club does well, and I will speak about this again when I review Barbie later in the show, is the generational expectation of women in the 60s, where we get a sneak peek at our three Ballagher friends' married life. Some of the girls' husbands are verbally rude, some verbally controlling, and some that seem like a happy marriage, but the husband is useless without a wife. The scenes that actually focus on the home life are the most emotional, entertaining scenes in the movie that I wish we got more of. It was the only time I felt some real human element and conversation between the characters. It would have also shown a bigger conflict and explanation of the lack of dialogue throughout the movie that seemed to be too reserved. The movie could have lengthened the home life conflicts and almost used this as an excuse for our leading women being reserved. But this is just me assuming that this would have fixed the movie, which is still a stretch, because there is truly no depth in any way of the characters, except for Angus O'Casey character Dolly, that has an emotional scene of her being a bad mother, as she takes her son who can't speak on the trip with them. Whereas a parent, we can relate to anything that happens with our children, we tend to overthink and emotionally blame ourselves. This is a pivotal scene with our women that should have been treated throughout the movie, and not just this one scene. The Miracle Club, even with its impressive cast, is bland, safe, and passive-aggressive in its intent. You can tell the cast has a lot to say, but the material limits what they can do. The movie is innocent enough to watch on a rainy day with a cup of Earl Grey tea with lemon and no sugar, alongside a blanket if you can't decide if you want to take a nap or not. This movie will make that decision for you. I'm giving The Miracle Club 2 stars. It's so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there's a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. Barbie suffers a crisis that leads her to question her world and her existence. In the How the Hell Did This Take So Long in Current Hollywood to Make the Barbie brand a movie, in Greta Gerwig's Barbie.
Hey Barbie, can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
You can find me under the lights, diamonds under my eyes.
This is the best day ever. It is the best day ever. So is yesterday, and so is tomorrow, and every day from now till forever. Do you guys ever think about dying?
When my heart breaks,
some things have been happening that might be related.
when my world shakes,
Cold shower, falling off my roof, and my heels are on the ground.
Flat feet!
What do I have to do? You have to go to the real world.
You can go back to your regular life, or you can know the truth about the universe. The choice is now yours.
The first one, the high heel.
You have to want to know, okay? Do it again.
closer I am fine. Closer I am fine.
I'm coming with you.
Okay.
Wow, this is the real world. What's going on? Why are these men looking at me?
Yeah, they're also staring at me.
Barbie in the real world. That's impossible.
If this got out, this could mean extremely weird things for our world. This would be catastrophic!
We haven't played with Barbie since we were like 5 years old. Oh.
No one rests until this doll is back in a box.
Even if nobody else sings along.
Humans only have one ending.
Get that Barbie!
Ideas live forever.
No, I won't let you do just one appendectomy.
But I'm a man.
But not a doctor.
Can I talk to a doctor?
You are talking to a doctor.
And I need a clicky pen?
No.
A sharp thing?
No.
There he is. Doctor!
Somebody get security.
Is Barbie, bitch, if you still in doubt.
Now here is a brand that we all knew was bound to happen. The shocking thing about it is how long it took to come to the big screen. With the lack of original ideas, an era of sequels, reboots, adaptations from nostalgia, and with such a popular toy that started all the way from 1959. Barbie has swept generation after generation of young girls and even boys, but now Barbie is here. and it's like nothing I would have ever expected from an actual live-action Barbie movie. Now, I have talked numerous times on the show about the film-going experience and how it should be at the utmost importance when it comes to our culture and introducing films to our youth. Barbie, hands down, is a movie that will be the best experience walking into the theater that we have seen in a long time. And this isn't due to the theater or theater staff, it's because of the actual moviegoers. I hope this is the start of more audiences participating in the experience. As I walked into the lobby of my theater, I was flooded with Barbie shirts, pink shirts, and accessories to even pink hair. The audience was excited to participate in what they were about to see. We don't even get this kind of participation from Star Wars or Marvel fans anymore. It was a very refreshing sight to see when going to the theater. Now, upfront and honest, my first reaction to seeing the Barbie trailer, I was actually reminded of the 2000 movie Rocky and Bullwinkle live-action animated big screen adaptation. I remember seeing this movie while I was a projectionist, and halfway through I was walking around the auditorium until I had to lay in the aisle holding my head hoping this nightmare of a film would be over. Where Rocky and Bullwinkle failed was the filmmakers' attempt at trying to make it current, but keeping the late 50s and early 60s humor and cheesiness of a lot of the child-oriented themes. And the balance was a complete misfire and a crescendo of random ideas that deflected the nostalgia feeling from the characters. As I was watching the trailer to Barbie, I was having flashbacks of the early 2000s of Rocky and Bullwinkle, with the trailer painting the picture of yet another product focus and a lot of silliness that attempts to tap into nostalgia using characters or a brand that wouldn't know what its target audience is. And I have to say, after walking out of Barbie, what Greta Gerwig does here is something I wasn't expecting, nor something that has not been executed so well. When it comes to creating a movie surrounding a toy label or brand, and knowing who it wanted to target and sticking to its guns when it comes to the overall message it wanted to portray. Now, Greta Gerwig, who also directed and penned this screenplay alongside Noah Baumbach, who wrote Marriage Story, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Life Aquatica. These two, we can really tell they bounce their style off each other quite nicely, where the two just feel in sync with the dialogue. We can sense Gerwig's sense of messaging in her storytelling that we got from her 2017 film Lady Bird, and even to an extent 2008's Nights and Weekends, alongside Baumbach's dry humor from his Wes Anderson films. The two complement each other extremely nice when it comes to their dialogue. Greta Gerwig manages to give the audience something we haven't seen before from a movie like this. Barbie doesn't seek out to become another generic, silly, kid-friendly cash grab, but rather a celebration of Barbie, a thank you to those that love the doll, with also a perfect mix of women equality empowerment, and the biggest surprise is how Gerwig integrates the faults in the brand of the doll. The movie is not afraid to poke fun at Mattel or the doll's fault, or even hide the controversy surrounding the doll over the years. It also gives us subtle points of communicating an apology to its audience or viewer of its sexist portrayal of the female body and even male stereotypes. These are the elements that really ensures its credibility, that I didn't feel I was sitting through a 2-hour movie that's trying to run like an infomercial to just sell a toy. For what this movie is, it's a very honest attempt at taking this toy and treat the audience and viewer like it's involved in an open conversation. The Barbie doll has had its deal of controversy over the years, and the movie puts those up front and center, and doesn't attempt to prove its innocence or assume they haven't had any controversy. Now, what Barbie executes flawlessly is the fact that it addresses everything from the way women are viewed and treated, the macho man stereotype, the question of our own mortality, where we place in life, while the clever inclusion of how our imaginations are altered by social expectations and symbolic visions in the form of a simple toy. Toys, as simplistic as it sounds, are a huge impact to our view of the world based on how they're presented. From G.I. Joes, Army Men, to baby dolls, to Barbie dolls, at one point we have all played with these toys, and how these toys are presented to us in our youth introduces us to a world that we are expected to see, as well as persona we should mimic, is a way the public wants us to view. Now, the times have changed, the toys have changed. A lot of these toys are still around, but the ideology of what these toys represent is treated a lot more different. There is a lot more conversation, hopefully, surrounding a lot of these toys. And Barbie brilliantly taps into this as well with the subtle but clever examples, especially with how toys would view us, as they have the mental state of a child as well. It's almost like a two-way street. We teach the toys, and the toys are a reflection of us. Now, the movie doesn't always make sense, and there are questions that arise of what and how. But this is the point of Gerwig, to engulf us into this imaginary vision, or a world, if you will, that at times doesn't make sense, just like life or reality. And our perception or view of things may not always make sense, no matter how hard you try to look at them. Now, at times this can come across as a little exhausting, where the film seems to bounce itself around quite a bit, especially when it comes to Ken, played by Ryan Gosling, who goes on a side adventure in the real world, finding his masculinity or meaning to his gender role, if you will. This is a scene that feels a little rushed and a little off balance from the rest of the film. This scene becomes an important point going into the second half of the movie, and it's treated more like a situational comedy instead of any well-written introduction to where this movie is going to go. Now, the Barbie character avoids to an extent a lot of the temptation to just take Barbie, played brilliantly by Margot Robbie, and just place this character in one attempted funny situation after another that we see so many times with movies like this that come from toys and toy companies. Between Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, the performance fit perfectly, especially with the innocent, simplistic chemistry between Gosling and Robbie. When it comes to the overall character progression, Barbie is well written when we feel a natural character development, whereas Ken, we don't really get much from him. Even though I did enjoy Gosling's screen presence and performance, the story demanded more dialogue and substance from this character. Now, I have to talk about the settings and environment here. With the simplistic concept of a movie surrounding a Barbie doll, the settings and environment is simplistic and utterly dazzling to match our characters an idea of a Barbie doll. What I really appreciate is that the movie doesn't bank on the characters or the settings to really drive these characters. The dialogue crescendos into unexpected heart and depth. Now, it would be daring for me to say that this is one of Gerwig's best films, but instead I will say this is one of Gerwig's most daring films. Barbie shows off Gerwig's range as a writer and a director, and she proves to the viewer and audience three things. A movie can be outstanding on the basis of a toy if the writer can balance and tap into their childhood imagination and express and reflect how those toys made them feel, even as an adult. And number two, never sacrifice your vision or the story you want to tell just because it's based on a popular brand. And finally, number three, Gerwig is now officially a force to be reckoned with when it comes to her direction style and storytelling. Barbie, in a way, is a triumph when it comes to movies based on popular toys, and what really separates it from anything that we've seen before is the fact it can balance the visuals and truly utilize the environment to give the feeling of an imagination and playfulness, but at the same time acknowledging the fact of how these toys that we play with are a direct reflection of our own imagination and thoughts, stresses, views, and the way we look at the world. And the way we look at the world and our views shine through these plastic toys. Barbie is a brilliant social commentary that I wasn't expecting. Mattel should really think about investing in a Greta Gerwig doll for their next lineup, because she sets the example and inspiration for young and old filmmakers everywhere. I'm giving Barbie 3.5 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. Don't forget to support the Talking Smack podcast, the Casting Views podcast. Listen to both my appearances on those two amazing shows. You can also show support to The Movie Wire by following me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And don't forget to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Next week, I will be back for an early review of Gran Turismo and special guest Alex from the Talking Smack podcast to review Oppenheimer. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film, and support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show, or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.